Well, Sunday wasn't great, but it's Tuesday now. I'm back here on the Bengals Blitz. Welcome, Chase Yance. I got my good friend over here, Jared Arevian. What's going on, Jared?
Not much, man. Tough week one, but we're looking towards week two, and I'm very excited, man.
Most definitely. And before we get into this, go on ahead and like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're listening, go like this, follow this, whatever you want to do on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. There's so many places where you can get podcasts. So just find us, and we'll be right there. And you guys can listen to us at any time you want. Getting your Bengals fix going on. We're going to talk really briefly about a couple of things. The blame game with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor, which is what we'll talk about in just a second. Later on, we'll talk what makes Baltimore such a unique team when it comes to the Bengals playing them. And then later on, we'll talk about how Cincinnati can rebound in the home opener. First off, we're not going to spend much time on this, but because we don't want to trigger ourselves back a couple of days ago and everything. But blame game. Joe Burrow played terrible. We all know that. The entire world knows that. We were just talking about this behind the scenes. The timing of this with this new contract, it couldn't have been any worse. But then again, Zach Taylor has, obviously a part in this, with play calling and everything. Jared, whose fault is it more of? Because it was bad, but who would you put more of the blame on?
Yeah, and I think after a blowout loss, especially in week one, especially to a division rival, the first two people you're blaming is the head coach and the quarterback, the way that offense played. And if I'm going to put more blame on someone, it's Joe Burrow. I think Bengals fans get into the habit of throwing a lot of blame and a lot of the fault on Zach Taylor when really there's things Joe Burrow could be doing better. Obviously, on Sunday, there were a lot of glaring things that Joe Burrow needs to do better after getting that new deal. But I think it definitely more of the blame goes on Joe Burrow. I see what people are saying with Zach Taylor. Sometimes the play calling wasn't great. Why weren't you getting Jamar Chase involved more early? The running game was working at times in that game. Why did you go away from it? I can see that, but the way I view it is just Joe Burrow can't go out there and in that first half complete less than 50% of his passes. And I think it was probably like late in the second quarter, and he had 30 passing yards. That's unacceptable. And just the entire way the offense ran and everything. And I will say this, I think Zach Taylor as a head coach's job, it's your job to get not only the offense, but the defense ready, the entire team ready. And when I look at the defensive side of the ball, they came out and they were ready to go. They were generating pressure, generating turnovers, doing what they had to do to put the Bengals in a position to win that football game. And the offense just laid an egg. And if you're Zach Taylor at a certain point, the players have to execute on the field, and I didn't see any of that on Sunday.
A nice way to kind of twist this a little bit. So, over the last couple of years, the Bengals have been known as a high-flying offense, and, they air it out and everything with Joe Burrow and obviously the cast receivers and Mixon back there. But doesn't it seem like a lot of the time the defense normally steps up more than the offense? Like, you ever get that kind of sense?
Absolutely. And I think especially too when it matters the most, when the two turnovers the Browns had, they had so much momentum in that game. And on that first turnover, the Browns, it was their first time being down near the red zone. Jermaine Pratt punches out the football. Chidobe Awuzie gets on top of it. The Browns, I think they had a 7-point lead when they were driving. Zach Carter comes up with a big pass deflection right into the hands of Dax Hill. Huge momentum swings, huge turnovers, places you expect an offense who just made Joe Burrow the highest paid quarterback, who brought in a massive contract left tackle in Orlando Brown Jr., who has invested so much and so much draft capital into these wide receivers. Joe Mixon is still on a big deal even after taking that pay cut. You expect them to at least put you in field goal range, at least get the job done, and they punt. And they took over the ball at midfield. And for me, that's absolutely unacceptable. It's unacceptable from every standpoint of that offense. It's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, and I think a big thing about it was, field position on Sunday was not really good for the Bengals. I think in the first half, we averaged around, starting around our own 15-yard line, and Cleveland starting around their own 30 or 35-yard line. But like said, when the defense is able to give you a gift with Zach Carter, specifically Zach Carter's tip ball, to Dax Hill's interception and gets us to around the 50, you gotta point some points on the board. Points, all of that. You gotta put it up. Like, especially with the last drive, the drive before that, we got an Evan McPherson field goal. I know he missed the field goal on that drive right there, 51-yarder, but I mean, you got to have momentum. You got to have momentum in a game like this, a sloppy game like that. And I think, you could also say that maybe some of the play calling wasn't great when it came to that of running the football, down there and trying to establish it and try to open up some lanes. But at that point, Joe Burrow, it's your job to take a hold and be like, hey, we're about to go out there and we're about to throw the football and we're about to go score a touchdown and tie this ball game up. And we're going to make this thing a game right down to the end. A very sloppy one, but we're going to make it a game.
Just going off of your point, just really quick here.
Yeah.
The thing with the run game that really made me angry on Sunday was there were times where they would be running the football and there were no holes there. And it was clear that it was just gone. Yeah. But when Joe Mixon broke off a 12-yard run, then breaks off a 22-yard run, it's why are you going away from that when you know the passing offense is not there today? I didn't get that. You mentioned the field position battle. I thought Brad Robbins was horrific on Sunday. A very, very, very poor debut for him. So just a lot of things that need to be fixed if this team wants to not only go to the Super Bowl, we can't even talk about the Super Bowl, but compete for a playoff spot and win this division.
Most definitely. I mean, it's a whole team effort right there. That was, obviously not a great start to the season and everything. That's, wasn't promising at all. But as we talked about before, we started 0-2 last year, got to the AFC Championship game. We're going to have to see a lot more than 3 points and however many total yards we had, like 150 on offense on Sunday. That was, obviously pathetic. And, well, before we move on, talk about the Ravens, obviously the defense came out, played really well. I did like what you said earlier. The defense generated pressure. Deshaun Watson looked like he was under duress until that last drive of the first half. We put him, I don't even know, put him in a coffin, it almost felt like. We were just, getting after him. Jermaine Pratt balled out. He played fantastic. The defensive line, B.J. Hill, DJ Reader, guys like that, Trey Hendrickson even, they played good games up front. But like I said, with the conditions, the Browns, they were able to run the football in a rain game like that. The Bengals, like we talked about before, are an aired-out football team. We don't really run the ball a whole lot. We don't really run it that well. But when you have a chance to run the football that way, when you have a guy like Joe Mixon, who at a time had like a 20-yard run and a 12-yard run and a 4-yard run and was just consistently popping things off in the second quarter, why abandon it? We don't know. No idea. But I'll tell you, there's a team that also likes to run the football a lot. Man, the Baltimore Ravens. We know a good amount about that team. We saw them 3 times last year. Actually, it's going to be the 3rd time in the calendar year that we will see them. We'll end up playing them 4 times in this calendar year of 2023, believe it or not. What makes Baltimore such a unique team to play against, especially with Lamar and a new system, Jared?
Yeah, I think Baltimore is such a unique team because you have a quarterback that is an unbelievable rusher, and you have to account for that on every single play, but also a quarterback who is a phenomenal passer at that same time. His arm is so undervalued and defenses, and I think every year in the NFL, he's shown that he's gotten better reading defenses, going through his reads. So that's what makes that offense so scary. And I think defensively, they're just a hard-nosed defensive team. They always have a good front seven. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to send pressure at you. So that's what makes the Ravens a scary team.
Most definitely. And they're able to, when it comes to running the football, they're able to throw many guys out there. Lamar himself running the football, Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins did end up getting hurt, unfortunately for him, with a torn Achilles. The former Ohio State Buckeye. It was, tough to see with him battling a lot of injuries overall. They got guys like Justice Hill back there. They have a plethora of guys that can run the football. So a lot of guys have fresh legs. Like you said, Lamar Jackson, when it comes to him throwing the football, very undervalued. He has a great arm. If he, like said, with the receivers, with the receivers that are able to get down the field, maybe a guy like Zay Flowers, who had a very nice debut, 9 catches for 78 yards against the Texans, and then Odell Beckham Jr. trying to get back into a flow, 2 catches, 37 yards on Sunday. The Ravens in a new system, maybe it's a better thing for Lamar, because we saw great football for Lamar under Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator, but obviously I know it was only one game under Todd Monken, but maybe we see some of Lamar's best football yet to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good point with Zay Flowers. I think he's going to be lining up a lot in the slot on Sunday. And that scares me because Mike Hilton has been a big liability in coverage. I think he was a liability on Sunday. And a guy like Zay Flowers, who's so speedy, so agile, definitely scares me a lot.
Most definitely. And it just, like you said about Mike Hilton. I mean, Mike Hilton on Sunday, this past Sunday, I mean, I remember I think there was a ball that Deshaun Watson threw. I forget who was to. Might have been Elijah Moore. But Mike Hilton was super close to getting the deflection. Almost could have been a pick on Sunday, but he's just been getting abused a lot in the slot. And that's going to be really big, especially with a rookie in Zay Flowers, who obviously a very good young player, has a pretty high ceiling in this Ravens offense. They use him, running the football, a little bit on some jet sweeps, whatever. I mean, they're going to try to get this guy the football as much as possible, to add another dimension to this offense. I was looking at some of the stats for this game. Lamar didn't play exceptionally well, but obviously in a new offense, you're gonna have some roadblocks. You're gonna have some kinks you gotta work out and everything in there. And obviously, I think Lamar Jackson's gonna be just fine with that. The Ravens had 13 penalties. Had a lot of penalties on Sunday. Their defense did get after C.J. Stroud quite a bit. They had 5 sacks. The Ravens also did lose a turnover battle 2-1, which is quite interesting. But I didn't get a chance to watch the Ravens a whole lot, and I don't know what to expect from this new Ravens team. But what do you expect from the Ravens team that always plays the Bengals as an AFC North division clash?
Yeah, I think what I would normally be saying to you is a game that's going to be one in the trenches. And I still think that holds some merit. But when I look at this injury report for the Ravens, especially coming into week 2 of the season, it's already a long list. You have Ronnie Stanley, who's week to week. They're all pro left tackle. Tyler Linderbaum, standout center, who was drafted in the first round last year, week to week as well. You go to the secondary, their best cornerback, Marlon Humphrey. He's up in the air. I know there's some optimism that he'll be playing on Sunday, but originally he wasn't supposed to be playing the entire first 4 weeks of the NFL season. So just a lot of injuries. And I think that's where the Bengals, you have to capitalize. I think we talked a little bit about it earlier in this episode, and it was the Bengals were finishing their sacks. That's one thing they did not do well at all last year, is finish their sacks. And I think if they can get to Lamar, they can bring him down, have a lot of plus plays defensively, set the offense up well, because we saw it last year as well. The offense takes a couple weeks to get into the rhythm, and rightfully so. Joe really hasn't seen a lot of time. A lot of these starters haven't played at all in the preseason offensively. So I think getting in a rhythm on offense early and getting after Lamar, I think take advantage of where the injuries are, where the weak spots of this team is, and go from there. But I think it's going to be a tough game, especially offensively in the trenches. I think Orlando Brown, it's a big game for him. It's a big game for all the offensive linemen. Like you said, that pass rush for Baltimore is legit. And what they do as well, they do something very similar, is they'll mix up their rushing looks. They'll send linebackers, they'll send corners in. Patrick Queen had an amazing play on Sunday against C.J. Stroud, got into the backfield there. And they got 2 really young, good pass rushers, Odafe Owe and David Ojabo. That's a scary duo right there. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney this offseason. So that pass rush is legit, and giving Joe time. Hopefully the conditions are going to be better than they were in Cleveland. But yeah, I think it's a game that's won in the trenches, get that run established, and a hard-nosed game.
Most definitely. I mean, Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, he kind of carries on what Wink Martindale did before he left for the Giants and everything. Kind of carries it on. The Ravens, I would say this, the Ravens had us figured out a bit last year in 3 games. They had us, for the most part. They were one of the teams that really halted us quite a bit, especially in the playoff game when we couldn't get some things going. And it came down to a couple plays, a play specifically in the trenches just down the road from me in Cincinnati. I'm looking out here at the skyline and everything. I'll tell you this, before we go to break, and I'm watching the game from Cincinnati on Sunday. I'm gonna be looking, if Joe makes a great play or Joe makes a bad play, I'm like, yeah, Joe, just look at the skyline over there. I'm like, actually, if Joe makes a bad play, damn it, Joe, come on, man. Like, it's just gonna be this whole thing. But when we get back from break, we're gonna talk about what Cincinnati needs to do to win this game on Sunday and who are gonna be some key players to make that happen for the Bengals to go 1-1. We'll be right back in just a moment. All right, and we're back. So, what are the Bengals' keys for success to win this game on Sunday? If we're going to keep it real simple, don't do what they did this past Sunday. Just don't do that, and that's a start. But let's get a little more specific. Jared, what do you think the Bengals need to do this Sunday? What are a couple things that you're really looking forward for them to do?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go to Cincinnati secondary first for a couple reasons. One, this is a really revamped Ravens receiving core. Keep in mind, Mark Andrews did not play week 1 against the Texans, and that's Lamar Jackson's favorite target. And Trey Flowers, he's filled that role as kind of the tight end blanket for the Cincinnati defense in years prior. So I'm really interested to see what Lou Anarumo has schemed up for him if he plays on Sunday. Is it going to be DJ Turner, the rookie? Are you putting Mike Hilton on him? Are you bringing the linebackers down? Does Nick Scott take a role? Does he come down into the box and cover a tight end? How do you fill that out? And with these receivers, who's matching up on who? Is Cheeto blanketing Odell all day? Cheeto Bayawuzie didn't even play a lot of snaps for what he normally plays on Sunday. So it's where do these cornerbacks match up? How do you take away Mark Andrews? How do you take away Lamar Jackson's new weapons? And the matchup I'm watching the most is Zay Flowers in the slot against whoever the Bengals have out there. Because if it's Mike Hilton, I'm concerned. If you bump Cam Taylor-Britt into the slot, I feel good about that matchup. If you bump DJ Turner in, I feel good about that matchup. I think there are a lot of ways the Bengals secondary can take away these new receivers and Mark Andrews for Lamar Jackson. On the offensive side of the ball, I'm looking to establish the run. I think if you get the running game early, it just opens up this entire offense. And I think an extension to that is the short passing game. Get the ball in your playmakers' hands. Get the ball in T. Higgins' hands. All these shots they were taking at T were either deep shots down the field where it looked like Joe was playing backyard football and throwing it up to him, or just passes where it was just the play was trash from the beginning. So get the ball in your playmakers' hands. The guys who can make something happen after the catch. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Get the ball in Joe Mixon's hands in space. I think the most underrated thing about Joe is he's a dual threat running back. He's a great receiving back. He's been a great receiving back since his Oklahoma days. Get the ball to him in space. Get the ball to your playmakers in space. And yeah.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of football coaches in the past and everything, and one in particular, Matt Ricketts, is on our Cut to the Chase Sports podcast and everything. Check us out tomorrow. But when we're looking at a good quarterback and everything, we know Joe's a great quarterback. He had a really bad week. We hope he rebounds really, really soon, specifically for this game. But what does a great quarterback have to do? What does a great quarterback have in him when it comes to the X and O's and everything? A great quick game passer, able to make quick decisions efficiently, which is what Joe can do. We got to see it Sunday. And I'll also add this on the offense, some creativity. We need some more creativity because, like you were saying, with T running a bunch of deep balls and all that stuff, just a bunch of fades. Like like the concepts on the outside, obviously, we're not coaches or anything like that, but the concepts, against some of these teams, they're just really, really bland. And it's just a bunch of fades. It's a bunch of just really simple stuff that teams have just been able to catch on to. And we need to put some more fear in the defense, moving Jamar in the slot and doing some, and just trying to abuse some matchups on there. T. Higgins even in the slot. Just move guys around and just have some of their corners and have their defense in a flux, being like, we didn't see this in scout. We didn't see any of this at all. So it just being able to just manipulate the defense pre-snap. We saw that with the pre-snap motions that they were doing, but it just did nothing on Sunday. But just moving guys around, getting the matchups that you want, and just abusing that stuff. And obviously, how does that happen? How does it get easier? Like you said, with a run game, getting Joe Mixon involved in quick game and some checkdowns and everything. That's an extension of your run game. That's what quick game does a really good job for. And I'll also say this on defense. I agree. If Mike Hilton is guarding a guy like Zay Flowers in the slot, oh boy, it might be a long day for us in that department, because Lamar Jackson is definitely going to be able to, to keep an eye on that and try to get his new playmaker the ball. And when it comes to Mark Andrews, if he's going to play Sunday, which, odds are, and, in our luck, he's probably going to play. But I will say, I don't know if they're going to throw this guy out there now. It might be later on in the season, but a guy that potentially might be able to take the role of Trey Flowers, who is almost built like him, same size, all that stuff. I don't know if they have enough trust with him right now to do that. DJ Ivy from Miami. I don't know. I feel like, he could be a guy later on down the road that they throw in there for tight ends once they get more, once they get more comfortable with him. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen this week, but just keep an eye on potentially if DJ Ivy develops more and more, they might throw him in there on third down, to guard some of the best tight ends in the league, like a Mark Andrews later on in the season, like a Travis Kelce, and fill that role for Trey Flowers. Who knows? But also, I agree with, we gotta get home to the quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Obviously, we know how dynamic he is. I don't think we've played him too bad over the last couple of years. We've only played him twice in the last 2 seasons, but I don't think we've played him overall too bad. We've done a decent job of spying him and everything, but I think we underrate the value of him throwing the football. So we just got to stay on our toes with him and, contain, do the right thing and just do our job and, try to create some pressure on him and try to make some big time throws. But, I definitely agree with that. Which of the receivers do you think has to have the biggest game Sunday?
Oh, I don't think one, and this is the beauty about the Bengals to me, is I don't think you have to rely on one of these guys to go for 150 yards and 2 scores when you have the best receiving core in football. I think it could be any of these guys, and I don't really think it matters who it is. I think all that matters is you're putting points up on the board and you're moving the ball. Yep. And I think, the ball is going to find the open receiver. Joe's done a really good job about that in his career in Cincinnati and at LSU. He's always had very good receiving cores, yet he always manages to spread the ball out to the open receiver. And I think, like I said, that short passing game's there, that running game's there, that's going to open up these deep shots. On Sunday against Cleveland, the short passing game and the running game wasn't there. That's why when the Bengals did go down the field deep in the passing game, it was just the Browns are like, what are you guys doing? There's no threat here. So I really do think it could be any of these receivers, and I think it really matters getting the run in the short passing game going early.
I agree. And I got one more question for you. What is the main reason why you are not panicking at this moment about the Bengals? Obviously, I know it's only one game into the season, but what is one of the main reasons you're not panicking about this team?
There's a lot. And I think the one thing I'll say, and we've been saying this the last couple of years, but it's just Joe Burrow really hasn't had a normal offseason in his career. His rookie year was COVID. The year after that, it was the ACL. Then it was he had surgery in the offseason after that. And then this year, he's never had a normal offseason. And football really is a game where you need live repetitions. You need that, whether that's in practice, whether that's in preseason games, you just need that. And you need the offense to flow. It's not just you throw these guys out there and they're just going to be throwing up Hail Marys and catching them. And you need to have a game plan. You need to be able to execute. And just the Bengals haven't had time to kind of gel, come together as an offense. And I think defensively, you definitely see that. You can see that the defense already looks like it's in midseason form, if you ask me. The offense looks like it's still in training camp. So to me, I'm really not concerned. And I have all the faith in the world in Joe Burrow, Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, all these other guys on offense. Like they have too many good players on offense, too many plus players. Too much money invested into this offense for it not to be good. So for me, it's just let the season play out. They started slow last year, ended up in the AFC Championship, a play away from going back to the Super Bowl. Just let the offense get its legs underneath them, and they'll be fine.
I agree. And I'll throw out this before we get on out of here. 2 stats, all right? 2 good stats, 2 bad stats. We'll start with the bad. So, Zach Taylor, under his career as the Bengals head coach, in the first 2 games this season, for the last 5 seasons, counting week 1, his record is 1-8. Not good at all. Now, Joe Burrow in that time frame, what's his record in that? 1-6. Not good at all. But we'll say this: weeks 3 and 4 under Zach Taylor over the last 5 years, just those 2 weeks combined, 5-2-1, and undefeated in week 4. So it does take the Bengals about 2 games to get going. There was in 2021, the Bengals did start 1-1. We did have a week 1 win against the Vikings and lost to the Bears week 2. But again, if the Bengals get 1-1 and we can get in a good spot with a victory on Sunday, history has shown that the Bengals normally get it around week 3 and week 4, and they get the ball rolling. So Sunday, obviously, divisional game, the second divisional game out of our first 2 games of the season, which when looking at the schedule was like, oh boy, this is going to be rough unless Joe Burrow has a normal offseason. Nope, didn't have a normal offseason. We're at this point right now. We got to get a win Sunday. You get in the right rhythm, the right flow, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if Joe's going to be, having a great first half or anything like that. Normally you see it start to click or in the second half, just like last year against Dallas. It started to click in the fourth quarter and everything. We almost pulled that game out. We'll see what happens in this one. But if we're able to get through this game week 2 against the Ravens, win this one, I think you'll start to see the ball roll and you'll start to see the offense start to get its rhythm for Monday Night Football against Los Angeles Rams. We need to win Sunday against the Ravens. Let's get after it, and let's get a divisional win. With that being said, that's my good friend Jared Arevian at Bengals Central. I'm Chase Yance, and we'll see you guys next time.